Hi everybody, this is Dan from Dan's Fish, and today I want to show you how I pack fish for shipping. I've got my bag of tricks here that I'll show you. This is some water that comes right out of my storage container. It's not from a fish tank or anything, it's just water that's, it's nice clean water. I put a cap full of prime in it for about 5 gallons of water. I know that's overkill. A capful can treat about 50 gallons of water, but it doesn't hurt the fish, and I figure having a little more ability to detoxify ammonia and stuff like that in a small bag is pretty helpful. This is what I use to fill the bags with oxygen. I'll show you more about that later. This is a bunch of bags. I use 4 milliliter bags. I get them from Uline. And the 4 milliliters are just nice and strong, so I don't worry about anyone's fins poking through them or them leaking as much. And then I have my heat sealer, which is my preferred way to pack, a styrofoam liner for a box, some shipping tape here. Towels are always useful. And then a couple containers to put the bags in when I'm prepping them for fishing. I want to do this video because I think it's really, really important that we, as a hobby, in general, ship fish well. And that's for a couple of reasons. One is for the sake of the animals themselves, right? We want them to be healthy and happy when they arrive, as much as they can be within the stressful conditions of shipping. We want to help them as much as we can. Keep them warm, keep their water quality as good as possible. The other reason is we want to keep other hobbyists happy and ourselves happy. I love it when I ship a box of fish and it gets there alive, and whoever receives it says, hey, they came, they're alive, they're in the tank, they're swimming, they're eating. That makes me feel good. That's a great thing. There's nothing worse, though, than when someone says, hey, I don't know what happened, but these guys didn't make it. You don't want that. And on the end of the person receiving the fish, there's nothing better than when I get a box of fish and opening it up, and it's like a new adventure every time. And when they arrive healthy and happy, that's wonderful. The other reason is something that's, I think, hugely important and maybe not talked about a lot. And that is the services we're using to ship these fish. The United States Postal Service, FedEx, UPS, any other carrier you are using. We cannot be irresponsible and pack fish in a way that they're going to make these carriers not want to support our hobby anymore. They could at any time just ban it and say, okay, we are not going to carry aquarium fish anymore. You've got to remember that the package you're sending is going in a truck full of other packages, possibly very valuable packages. And if you pack your fish in such a way that they leak all over and get all over all those other packages, then that's a big problem for any of these carriers, or for anyone that's trying to receive those packages, or for anyone that shipped those other packages that we damaged because we didn't pack our fish right. So if the carriers decide not to carry live fish anymore, that's totally on us, guys. We've got to do a good job shipping so that doesn't happen. I was talking to my UPS rep just the other day, and he was talking about how UPS doesn't really want to carry fish anymore. There's items that UPS just thinks are a problem, and they'd rather they didn't have to ship. They are shipping them, but according to my rep, it's not something they like to do. And the reason is, of course, if you think about it, because they've had bad experiences with it. So it's hugely important that we do this in a way that protects the fish, yes, our experience as a shipper, yes, the experience of the person we're shipping them to, yes, but for the sake of the hobby as a whole, especially that we pack these in a way that the carriers don't have problems with what we're doing. Because if we screw them up, if what we do screws up their operation too many times, it's only a matter of time before they say, nope, not doing it anymore, or they make it really complicated and difficult to do it, or they just charge an extraordinary amount to do it. Any of those things. So I want to take some time and show you how I do it today, because in my experience, this process works. I have a very high success rate of getting live fish to people that I send them to. I haven't had any problem for years, ever since I really figured out how to do this, of any packages leaking or any packages affecting packages around it. No complaints from anybody. So about that. So I'm going to show you my method here. So yeah, let's get started. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is build our box. So I usually ship UPS. I'm sorry, I do ship UPS, but in this case I'm going to use a post office box, flat rate box here, to demonstrate what to do. So I have this little doohickey which makes this really nice and easy. I just make sure I have good coverage on each side of the seam. A lot of people will put more strips of tape across. I've never had a problem with just doing the one, to tell you the truth, so that's what I do. Then it's pretty important for the fish's sake that the liner, that you insulate it. It should always be insulated. I found that styrofoam is the best insulation. This is just sheet insulation from Home Depot. And it's important that this liner fit in here nice and snug. If you have gaps, then cold air is going to come in, and if it's in the winter, that'll freeze the fish, or hot air in the summer, that could make them very uncomfortable. So make sure your liner is nice and tight in here. Now, the top and bottom piece are the same. This is a nice square box. That's why I like this size when I'm shipping small fish, and maybe just like 6 of them. And then each of the side pieces are the same size, and they just fit together like so. Which is nice when you're cutting your styrofoam liners. I use a hot wire cutter, and that way all these side line pieces, for this size box anyway, I can just make these all the same dimensions, and it makes it really quick to cut them when I'm making the boxes. And then if I put this guy here, then it's nice and tight. Okay. I usually put the reflective side down. I figure that'll help keep the heat in. If I have a heat pack in there, that'll help. And so, oh, I forgot my heat pack. So at some point in this video, I'm gonna have to rush out and grab that. But so there we go, nice lined box. And I believe this is 3/4 inch styrofoam sheeting, if I remember correctly. So I've got my box, and I've got my water in this bucket that I showed you earlier. So let's say I'm going to ship 6 fish. So I'll take 6 bags. I usually put 2 in each of these containers. Again, they're 4 milliliter bags, so they're nice and strong. And the other reason that's nice is because then they kind of stay upright a little better. So let me get some water here. All right, towels, very useful. So I'm just going to add a little bit, and I mean a little bit, of water to this. You don't want a lot of water. Oh, I forgot a really important step, so I'm going to back up. I am sorry. There's something about doing this on video that made me forget my process. So before I do this, I angle these corners with my heat sealer. That's so that no fish can get caught in these corners when it's shipping. So I just take it and put a little seal at a diagonal across each corner. So I don't know if you can see that, but there's now a seal across here and across here. So when I fill this with water, there's no way a fish can get in this corner, and then if it gets pinched down during shipping, the fish can't get hurt. I have lost fish that way when people send them to me. And before I started doing this, I would occasionally lose a fish when I sent a package out to folks. So started doing that, and I haven't had a problem really since. So that's what I do. One trick with the sealer is you put it down, bring it up, let it sit for a sec before you take it off, and that lets the seal stay nice and flat. If you move too fast, you do what I did here, which you're not going to be able to see, but that seal right there is not nice and flat. I'm going to redo that. All right, we're okay now. So let me get these done. I think I got this impulse sealer at uline.com, and I can't remember how much it was, but it wasn't crazy expensive. And I've had it for years, and I still haven't had to replace the Teflon here, or the heating element, or the stop up above. And I've had it for a long time, so it's been a good purchase for me, I think. And again, Uline doesn't know I just said that. I'm not getting paid to say that. I have no stake in Uline at all. It's just that I've found a quick, convenient way to order shipping supplies. Okay, so now that I've done that, now I will put a little bit of water in there. And when this is done, I want about 1/4 to 1/3 of the bag, maximum half the bag, to have water in it. The rest I want to have oxygen in it. Because I'm using pure oxygen, I can put a little more water in there than someone that isn't. But I think we often make the mistake of putting too much water in our bags. What the fish need is clean water that is well oxygenated. Okay, I'm gonna now, I think you can see this on the video. So I'm gonna move this about halfway. I'm gonna put the bag about halfway up its length. Okay, and I'm going to take part of the bag and stick it off the edge here so that it doesn't get sealed, because I want a little space to insert my air. Okay, so here's what I do. I put that down. What I've done is about halfway up the bag, I've sealed across here to there and left this gap free. And that's because I'm now going to take my air, I'm going to stick it down in there, through that gap, pinch it, and that's how I fill the bag with oxygen. Okay? So now I've got that. There's oxygen in there, and now I'm going to kind of make a shipping packet. So this time I push down, I hold, and I'm going to peel this top piece off. Okay? So if I had a fish in here up to maybe 2 inches, this would be great. It would go in this bag, the corners are pinched so it can't get stuck, and it's sealed across the top. Then what I do to make sure nothing leaks is I double bag it. So I use the top of that bag. I make sure the bottom is nice and sealed. It's got 2 seals across. The one when we tore it off the, actually it doesn't, I think the other seal lasts. When we tore it off, I think that ends up on this bottom bag. So anyway, I put this bag inside this other bag. Now we've got 8 milliliters of plastic protecting this thing. Pretty good. Then I take this part and I seal it a couple times. And just because, I sometimes tear off the extra bit and throw it away. So now what we have is a double bagged pouch that we can put the fish in. They're not going to get caught in the corners. It's nice and kind of sturdy. It's got about, I don't know, 1/3 of it is full of water. And it's ready to go. So that's how I do that. So I'm going to do these other bags real quick and show you what we end up with. This doesn't take forever. never thought when I started doing fish that I would kind of make my own bags. It's a skill you pick up on the way. Now this bag doesn't have much water in it at all, so that would be for very small fish, like a, I don't know, tetra or something like that. Little danio maybe. I'm imagining that this is probably on a time lapse, so I'll say this later in the video, that you don't want to do these too tight. You don't want to make the bag so taut and so pressurized that when they go up on an airplane and fly across the United States, that they, you know, get even more pressure in them, and I don't know if they pop or if it's so much pressure that I don't know if it could be hard on the fish or whatever. But anyway, you don't want them so tight that they're at risk of popping or something like that on you. That element's a little warm after you use it a few times. It can heat up. Oh, of course I forgot to put water in that one because I'm making a video. The element got a little warm there after using it so many times in sequence, and so I've turned it down a bit. I'm kind of constantly figuring out how warm the element needs to be. And making little adjustments if it's getting to be too hot. You'll notice, if you look at your seal, you'll notice that it's not quite as flat and nice as when the temperature is correct. And that's just a skill that I guess you acquire, some knowledge you acquire as you get experience doing this. By the way, this oxygen, I showed it in my the tour of my fish room, but it's just from a canister that I got from a welding supply company, and it's not medical grade or anything like that, but it doesn't have to be. It's purities in the high 90s from what I understand, and that's just plenty for shipping fish. So I think basically you lease the canister from the company. I believe that it costs $20-25 to fill the canister with oxygen, and it costs I think I paid like $125 to lease the canister, and then another, I don't know, 25, 50, probably another 50 for the regulator along with the hose and the little I call it gun that you squeeze when you put the air into the bag. So all told, I guess it's probably a couple $100 to get set up, if I remember right. And I've had that canister since I got this fish room, so for 6 years, and I've shipped quite a lot of fish, and I have not had to refill it. It's a lot of air in there. Okay, last bag coming up. I will remember the water this time. Squeezing a little air out because that one got a little bit tight. Okay. You know, I'm sure when my head's down like this, I'm sure you guys are getting a nice bright reflection off the top of my head. I considered calling my YouTube channel Bald Fish Guy, and I considered calling my online business and my tag on Aquavid and all that Bald Fish Guy, but I don't know. I went with Dan's Fish, not because I didn't think that would be fun. I actually thought it'd be really fun to have that name, but I don't know. I wondered if it might come across as unprofessional or corny or something to some potential customers, and I thought it might limit my customer base a bit, so I didn't go for it. But I think it's apropos. Okay, I didn't leave myself a lot of room on this one, so this is going to be a little bit tricky, but we'll get it. All right, nice. That worked just fine. Yep. Okay. So now we've got 6 bags of fish in this little box. 3 on this side, 3 on this side, so 3 by 2. And if I had fish in there, they'd be 6 packs of fish, but that's how I would do it right there. I'm going to pause this video, run and get a heat pack, and show you how I do the heat packs. Okay, I'm back. Sorry, I had to run out and grab a heat pack because I forgot them. So I'm done with this heat sealer now, and let me clear this out so you can see what I'm doing pretty well. In fact, I'm going to move the heat sealer out of the way, just because we are done with it. Okay, so a couple things about heat packs. One is they consume oxygen. So it can be tricky when you're using these in a sealed up box if you're using breather bags. I'm not using breather bags in this demonstration. In fact, I almost never do use breather bags. I like some things about them, other things I don't like, and after all is said and done, and trying both breather bags and regular old poly bags for a long time, I finally just went with the poly bags. With my system, with how I do things, it's just the best, easiest, and most time efficient way to do it. And I've had great results with the fish. So if you are using breather bags, you'll need to find a way to make sure that the heat packs don't consume the oxygen that your fish need in the bags. Some people poke a hole in the top of the styrofoam and put the heat pack right under that hole. There's other ways of doing it, but I'm not going to get into that too much because I'm not using breather bags. So different heat packs are good for different things. This is a 72-hour heat pack. This is a 40-hour heat pack, and they also come in a 20 or 24-hour heat pack. And you can look at the data on how quickly each one heats up, what temperature it maxes out at, how long it stays at that temperature, but that's all dependent on how much oxygen they're getting. If the conditions they were tested in had more or less oxygen, it's going to be different for you. So in general, the smaller heat packs heat faster, get hotter, and then kind of their arc's pretty quick and high, and then they go down. Whereas the larger heat packs have heat slower, maybe don't get as hot, and kind of come down slower. So a 40-hour heat pack I might use in a situation where it's cold here, where I'm shipping from, but warm where they're going. Just because it'll heat quickly and then it'll taper off pretty quickly. But in general, what I almost always end up using are these 72-hour heat packs. They work well in almost all conditions. So if you're going to get one kind of heat pack for general use, this is the one I would recommend. For this demonstration, I'm going to use the 40-hour heat pack because it's cheaper, and I'm going to waste one. So I'm going to waste the cheaper one. Couple things, there's two sides to this. One is here, and then the other one has a pink line that goes across it. It's a little faded on this one, but there's a pink line that goes across it. And basically, you don't want to cover this side with the pink line, because this is the side where the oxygen exchanges with the medium inside the heat pack and creates the heat, the chemical reaction that creates the heat. So make sure that the pink side is not up against the top of the box, that it's not blocked or covered in any way. So the way I like to do this is I don't put these directly in the box. I find that they often come off when I do that. I find that a little buffer between the bags and the heat pack is a good thing. So what I do is I wrap them in newspaper. Not super tight or anything, loose enough they still get oxygen, but I still wrap them. And I just have to keep track of which side is up. So I want that pink line to be up. So it's up right now, down, up, down. Now it's up. And then I'll take the leftover here and get that out of the way so you can see better. And on one side, this is the up side, I'll put it over, and then I'll also flip it over and put it on the down side. And what this does is it creates a little cushion on each side so airflow can still get in there. So it makes it so that the oxygen exchange is maybe a little slower, but not cut off completely. And then I just use a little bit of tape, and I don't cover the main part of the heat pack. I just put a little bit on the edge, and that's to keep the newspaper behaving properly, so it doesn't pop out at you. Okay. Now, even if I did put a little bit of tape over it, it's still got the buffer of the newspaper between the tape and the heat pack, so it's going to be fine. So I take that concoction and I put it in the very middle, the very center of the top of my shipping box, the shipping box lid. And then I run tape along it, and I only tape along the sides, this side and this side. I don't put the tape across the middle of it. Okay. I use a lot of tape so I can go all the way around so that the tape doesn't come off. If you just put tape on this side, it might come off with the weight of the heat pack. But if you wrap it all the way around enough that it's on itself, then the odds are this thing is not going to come out. I also do this because I find that the tape sticks to the newspaper better than it does the heat pack itself. And I have had times when I've received fish and the heat pack was in there, and there was no buffer between the heat pack and the fish, and the heat pack fell from the top of the box, fell from the lid of the box, and landed directly on the bags of fish, and it actually got too hot and cooked the fish. So, well, it didn't really cook, and it doesn't get that warm. I think the top temperature maxes out at, I want to say 120 degrees. It could be a little more than that or a little less. I can't remember exactly off the top of my head. So the two main edges are taped all the way around with the tape on itself, so it's not going to come off. And then just to be sure, I tape the sides too. But again, I'm not covering the body of the heat pack. I'm running the tape along the sides so that the heat pack gets oxygen exchange. And I'm going to leave this side undone and make sure there's a little room in there so oxygen can get in there, so that the oxygen can flow around it a little easier, and hopefully it'll heat better. So that's the heat pack all ready to go. Here's the box with the fish all ready to go, except for, it's a demonstration, so there's no fish. But put this on. Pretty self-explanatory from there. Close the box up. Put the tape around, and I make sure to go far enough that it overlaps with the tape that I put on when I sealed the bottom side. So that way we have a continuous round of tape around it. And again, I don't go here or here. I just put the one strip around. That's always been enough. Use a good packing tape and you'll probably be just fine. Alright, box of fish ready to go. Then I go to usually my PayPal account and use that to generate a label, slap my label on there, and it's ready to go. So that's my process. And again, I think this is really important, folks. Whether you do this way or another way, that you do it in a way that makes sure that that you're not going to have leakage, that you're not going to have a problem. Oh, something I totally forgot to do, of course, now that I sealed it up, is I usually take a piece of newspaper, fold it up, and put it in there as well for some absorption, so that if there were to be a tiny leak or something like that, there would be some newspaper in there to kind of absorb that moisture. Or even if there's not a leak, if there's condensation in there or anything like that, the newspaper helps absorb that out. And video's over, I'm not going to go back and reshoot it or anything, but just a piece of newspaper folded up so it fits nicely in the box will help a lot. But again, like I was saying, we've got to be responsible in how we do this. There's other ways to do it. There's ways to use breather bags. I think whatever you do, you need to double bag, you need to insulate well, you need to have sturdy packaging, plenty of air for the fish, clean water, mostly air, and a little absorbent material in there. And if it's cold, a heat pack. one thing about breather bags that I find difficult sometimes is adequately double bagging them. I don't think personally we should ever mail fish out or send fish if they aren't double bagged, because if one bag fails, we have a safety net. And it can be difficult using breather bags to double bag them in a way that they still breathe well, and we have that extra layer of protection. So I prefer this in a lot of ways. You can use rubber bands. If you do, again, double bag them. Make sure that no matter if the box ends up upside down, that they're still going to be sealed. Make sure that you use quality rubber bands and quality bags, and that they're nice and tight. There's also metal clasps that you can use to seal your bags, but the principle's the same. Every bag should have 2 layers of protection. It should be double bagged, and be a quality bag, be sealed well, clean water, plenty of oxygen, sturdy box, absorbent material, and a heat pack when it's cold. And also in the heat of summer, I'll put an ice pack in sometimes, especially if I'm shipping, darters or bitterlings or white-cheeked gobies, or any of those species that like it cooler. So, anyway, I should tell you, there's been cases where I've packed the fish this way, sent them off, there was a mishap, and the fish were in the mail for more than a week, and they still made it on time. If you do your job right, they're going to be okay. I think maybe in another video I'll cover how to prep fish for shipping in detail, but the basic thing is you need to have at least 2 days where you don't feed them and there's nothing in the tank for them to pick at and eat, ideally. The reason for that is because then they void their digestive system, so they're not pooping in the bag all the time and creating a lot of ammonia and waste. So that's really important, really helpful. So before you ship your fish, I guess I'll just talk about this now. Before you ship your fish, I think you have a responsibility to make sure that they're healthy, that they're nice and fat, so that they have a lot of nutrition built up, and they're hardy, so that they can take the stress of shipping. And not just take the stress, but so you feel comfortable not feeding them for 2 days before they ship. And if they do ship and they're in the mail and something happens and they're in there for over a week or whatever, we can't control that. Once it's gone, it's, once we give it to the carrier, it's out of our control. That if that happens, then they're gonna still have clean enough water to make it alive. So yeah, I guess that's about time to call this video. It's going on, and y'all have things to do. But if you have questions about shipping or prepping fish for shipping or anything like that, please put them in the comments below. I'll be glad to answer them. You can also email me at dan@dansfish.com, and I'd be happy to help you. All right, thanks.